Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Recently got a job at the mall at a tea shop. It's a really big mall in a really big city. It is placed in front of the children's playground area inside of the mall. I often have to close the store, which takes a long time, washing teapots, etc., and we're usually the last of the workers out. We usually blast music so we can only really hear the music while we're cleaning and shit. The first time leaving, I kept hearing children's laughter resonating throughout the entire mall while I was lost trying to get to the parking lot on my first day of work. It was absolutely terrifying. Turns out, the mall has implemented subliminal tactics to subconsciously convince people and children that they're having fun. They programmed certain machines, those coin-operated cars and shit, to emit children's laughter to give the ambiance of fun and excitement. It is bizarre and scary and extremely strange because they don't turn the laughter off at night. I've got a few more. Working at Joann Fabrics. Woman comes in, early 20s. Very pretty young woman, healthy looking, very sweet. Can't decide which fabric to get to make dress. Explain that they're both very lovely, and point out that they're both on sale. She makes no eye contact. She laughs.
All right, you've convinced me. May I have 3 yards of each, please?
Say, of course. Make a bit of small talk while cutting, asking her if she has thread, needles, etc. She spends a lot of time stroking the fabric, smiling, sort of whispering how beautiful and lovely it is. Finish by saying that she will be very glad she got both. Makes eye contact with me, smiles.
I guess you're right. I've only got a few more days to live, so I've not much to lose. Thank you for your kindness.
Stunned, she walks away as she's saying this, can't say anything to her. Wouldn't have had anything to say anyway. Watch from cutting counter as other girl rings her up. Once she's done, she turns around and looks at me, smiles and waves, and walks out the door. Never see her again. Not scary, but rather bizarre. Her eyes gave me chills. Working seasonal job at costume shop during Halloween. It's a very old building, not a Halloween store that only sets up in rented facilities during the season. Has been there for approximately 40 years. Racks of costumes will randomly start rustling as if someone has moved them while I'm the only one around. Costumes will just fall off the shelf. Doors will be locked and unlocked at random. TV in break rooms sometimes turns on. Mannequins will be in different positions than before, facing different ways, arms, head turned a different way, etc. We'll organize my makeup counter, we'll come back a few minutes later, and shit will be knocked down and messed up. Hear children laughing after closing in the children's costume area, which is a separate room, after hours. Very old, rickety spiral staircase in back. Hear it creaking and moving as if someone is walking on it when no one is in the back. The sales floor is only about 10% of the whole facility. The rest is rental costume storage and seamstress areas. Thousands of mascot heads and costumes hanging around all fucking over in all these rooms. Extremely eerie feelings when in back room alone to get something from a customer. I am glad I do not work there.
I used to work as the projectionist at a movie theater. Like stage theaters, cineplexes tend to have a reputation for strange happenings, and this one was no different. I had 2 coworkers tell me about ghostly encounters. One saw a woman in the employee-only hallway while taking out the trash who rounded a corner and disappeared. The other was an usher who was waiting for the last guest to leave the auditorium during credits before starting to clean. When he came down and turned to go out the door, the guest asked the usher where the woman had gone. The usher said, "What woman?" and the guy said that a moment earlier he had looked around to see if he was the last person left and saw a woman sitting in the back row. Neither he nor the usher had seen her leave, and she would have had to walk right past the usher on her way out. Anyway, I used to frequently hear a female voice when I was up in the projection booth by myself. The walls are all essentially soundproofed, so the movies don't interfere with each other. So it wasn't likely a movie I was hearing. Not to mention that it would frequently be saying my name. The first time I saw a physical event was when I came in the morning and the desk lamp was unplugged and on the floor a good 6 or 7 feet away from the desk where it had been when I left the night before. The only people in the theater between when I left and came back were the night cleaners, and they didn't have access to the booth, which also had its own alarm and motion sensors at the doors. Then a few months later, I was building a movie when a 2-inch square piece of plywood, which had formerly been used to level a wobbly table and was now sitting on the desk, whizzed past my head as though it had been thrown at me. There were a few other events that happened over the years, but honestly by that point I was so used to them that I can't even recall the details off the top of my head.
It's not the creepiest story, or even the weirdest, but I'll always remember it. Working at Dunkin Donuts at 18. Night shift, only me one other coworker. There would always be a rush from 6 to 7, then quiet down for the rest of the night. She and I are running around, trying to get everything done. Woman comes in for something at the counter. I take it, coworker is dealing with the drive-through. In a rush, take her order. She decides to make small chat even though I'm in a hurry. How are you tonight? Is it busy often at night? Is it just you two girls? Blah blah blah. Hurry up lady. Guy at the window is being an impatient dick. Snaps something to my coworker about hurrying up. Woman mutters, "What an asshole." I was pretty surprised and chuckled, "Yeah. You know people like that, who just have no respect for others. I just can't stand it, yeah. That's why could never work a job like this. Right. Because I understand why people go into work and shoot everyone. What? Have no clue how to respond. She just takes her coffee, thanks me and leaves. Coworker and I are creeped out for the rest of the night. It was just the way she said it, just in the most serious way, like, nothing behind her eyes. I felt like I was talking to a serial killer. Just creepy. Another one, working at night as usual, with different coworker. We just finished with the usual rush, now it's going to be slow all night. Coworker and I are chatting, cleaning up, and restocking for the overnight crew. Coworker gets syrup from the back, asks if I left the back door open. Why would I? It's freezing tonight. She shuts it, I go back and the door is open again. Now, this is a big-ass metal door, it's not something that the wind can just blow open. Keeps happening for a half hour. My coworker is freaking out and paranoid, and is watching the cameras instead of helping me, trying to see if she can catch someone going around and opening the door. Unfortunately, there isn't one at the back door and she's panicking more and more. I'm trying to keep her calm, by just saying someone is pranking us. She was mostly scared because one of the overnight crew got a knife at his back recently. She goes in the back to fill cleaning buckets. Hear a scream. Run in the back to see her and there's a man in the back. Realize it's the owner of the store. He'd been opening the door and we couldn't catch him because he knew where to avoid the cameras. He had come from his son's birthday party and wanted some free ice from our machine. He thinks he's fucking hilarious and grabs both of us by our waists and squeezes us to him. We could tell he was drunk, babbling about, no hard feelings. When he leaves he's like, "You girls be careful now, you're all alone, be careful of strangers." We were both furious for the rest of the night. That's pretty much it for creepy stories. Other than when I was working as a waitress at a Greek restaurant and a table of drunk Greeks were talking about my ass all night. Fucking Greeks.
I once worked security at a large local hospital. I mostly worked third shift from 9 to 5 a.m., because it worked with my school schedule, and there were far fewer people to deal with than in the day shifts. I often heard sounds coming from places where sounds shouldn't be coming from, but all hospitals have shit like that, and most are probably explainable. Of all the hospital grounds, the basement is the worst at night, because absolutely no one is down there working. Engineering takes up most of the space, as well as storage, but the morgue and autopsy are down there as well. Early one morning I'm doing rounds and I decide to start in the basement and work my way up to the top floors of the hospital and end in the ER. I take the stairs because the lights for the front hallway are kept off in the basement at night, and the switches are located down, near the bottom of the steps across from the entrance to the morgue. The lights on the back hallways are also off, and kept off, because we're not told to walk them, so we don't. We just check the locks on pathology, turn the lights back off and leave. I head down the main stairs and stop at the bottom, and turn on the lights to the front hallway. I check the locks on autopsy and the morgue entrance, look down both ends of the halls, and then turn around to turn off the lights and start back up the stairs. As soon as I cut the lights, I hear scuttling noises coming from the end of the hallway that turns down towards the back end of the basement, where engineering and storage are located. I turn the lights back on and I walk down towards where I heard the sound. I reach the end of the front hallway where it turns off left onto another longer, darker hallway lined with random equipment and boxes. No scuttling sounds. I stare off into the darkness trying to get my eyes to adjust, willing something, anything to make a sound. After a minute or so I just assume it's some rodents and turn back towards the stairs to leave. I get just to where the light from the stairs reaches into the darkness, about halfway between the darkened hallway and the stairs, when I hear a voice say, "Hey," from far down the darkened hallway behind me. I stop, piss myself a little, then muster up the courage to turn back and check out the sound. I walk the entire length of halls, all the way back to parts of the basement I've never been to before. Doors are shut and locked. No animals, no people, no hiding places. I make up my mind that I'm hearing things and start walking back towards the stairs. I get to almost the exact same spot as before when I hear the "hey" again in the same volume, cadence, and asexual tone as before. I keep walking. I reach the entrance to the morgue and start to turn left to head up the stairs when I hear the "hey" again, only it's the same volume as before, and I'm easily 25 yards past where I last heard it. I hit the light switch and haul ass upstairs. I decide to head over to HQ to talk to the desk sergeant about what happened. I figure at the very least he'll send someone down with me to check it out in case there is someone down there prowling about, and I just happen to miss them during my search. He listens intently to my story, and then laughs at me when I finish. He tells me that he's surprised I'm only just now experiencing the caller in the basement, and then goes on to explain that they don't tell us to go searching off down the back hallways because of it. Just check the locks and autopsy in the morgue and get the fuck out. I ask him what other experiences that he'd be surprised I haven't encountered yet. He shakes his head and says, "If I told you then you'd probably not come back to work tomorrow. Just expect some unexpected shit." From that day on I ignored everything I heard at night in the basement, and I heard quite a few strange sounds, but I never heard the caller again.
There was a really scary-looking resident at the facility I used to work at, for about 2.5, 3 weeks. She had fallen in her home and been discovered about 3 to 5 days later after a neighbor complained about newspapers piling up outside her door. I guess she was estranged from her family, so nobody knew anything had happened. Pretty sad shit. She was on end-of-life comfort care. Her mind was completely fried from any number of things, mostly being a ridiculously severe alcoholic. She looked like she was already dead the moment she came in. I worked a night shift and spent a little time in the evening trying to get her to eat something so she didn't simply starve to death. She started mumbling, then got coherent enough and said, "No, feed them first, and nodded toward the window. Not pleasant alone in that room with her late at night. The night she finally passed, we were turning her to try and position her a bit more comfortably as she was moaning pretty bad, and when we moved her in bed her skin was sloughing off onto the sheets. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever experienced. She lasted hours even after that. Also, in the same room, the woman in that bed before her was about 102 years old and would have conversations with her dead son the whole week just before she died."
I work in a restaurant per bar, and there have been some odd occurrences. Don't really believe in ghosts and none of it is really scary, but some of it is really weird. Since I've started working there, too many years ago, we've had things falling off of shelves when nobody is close to them. Fair enough. A few times it was stuff I was sure was pretty far back from the edge of the shelf. But hey, maybe the shelves are uneven. But we've still always kind of half joked about it being haunted. One time it was a slow lunch, Monday maybe. There were no customers yet and the waitresses were all chatting at the bar about their drunk abusive boyfriends, and how they're going to change this time or some stupid shit. All cooks are male and in the kitchen. The jukebox was off, so it was pretty quiet. Suddenly, we all hear a loud breaking glass sound from the women's bathroom. Go in there, and the big mirror was about 4 feet wide by 3 feet tall, had fucking exploded all over the place. The entire bathroom was covered in glass in all directions like it had just blew out. The thing had been there for years with no problems and nobody was in the bathroom. The mirror incident just happened to have occurred about a month after one of our coworkers died of what we think was an OxyContin overdose. He and another cook were living together. One morning the other cook wakes up to find him lying face down, dead on the living room floor. Rumor is he was there with one of the regulars from the bar snorting oxy, dude OD'd, and the regular guy just let himself out and left the guy dying on the floor. As far as any of us knew the guy didn't normally even fuck with that shit, probably why it killed him. Also, the guy that died used to hit on all the girls and always got rejected. Anyways, the weirdest incident, for me, was a time that I actually saw a Parmesan cheese shaker fly off of a counter by itself. Until this point, I had heard things fall, but this was my first time actually witnessing it, and it was fucking weird. It was a glass container that was thicker at the bottom than at the top, so it wasn't at all top heavy or anything. I saw a bit of movement out of the corner of my eye, and looked over just in time to see this thing fly right off the counter. Again, it wasn't even close to the edge, it had to go about a foot just to get to the edge. It shattered all over the floor. I'm immediately like, holy shit, did anyone just see that besides me? That was crazy. And another guy responded, yeah. I just watched it fly across the counter. That guy died of an overdose recently too. Not that that is some crazy twist or anything, it's totally unrelated. But he was the third person that has worked there in the past few years to die of an OD. The place is owned by these two Italians brothers who are second-generation restaurant owners. Their dad started the business, and he's this old Italian guy with a kind of thick accent. Rumor around town is they are mobsters, but I've worked for them long enough to know what is probably closer to the truth. The dad got the money to open his first restaurant from the mob. So maybe there's some bodies under the place? Maybe one of my dead coworkers is doing something? Maybe there's a logical explanation for everything, I don't know. But there are strange things afoot at that place.
My girlfriend used to work at a video rental place. She'd work alone a lot of the time, so I'd stop by and hang out with her, etc. I was there one day and no one else was in the store. We were talking when I heard the distinct sound of a movie hitting the floor. I turned around to see where it came from. I asked my girlfriend if there was anyone else in the store. She said that there wasn't anyone in store, but that it happens all the time. So I walked around the store to find the movie that fell. But there wasn't anything out of place. She said that there's never anything on the floor. They hear it all the time. Sometimes they'd hear the sound of an entire bay of movies crashing to the ground, but never find anything that had fallen. They knew the sound of a bay crashing really well because kids knocked them down all the time. She worked there for nearly 4 years, but we never figured out what the fuck was causing the noise. I eventually got used to it when I was there. I mean, it happened probably once or twice an hour. The place would be deadly quiet, and no one would be in the store, and you'd hear shit moving around like crazy. I don't know.
Tending a college mostly built in 1929. Exploring old theater building, which was built in 1865 as first part of new campus. I really love old buildings and antiques and shit. There are these 7 feet tall mirrors with marble bases and gold frames. Fucking gorgeous pieces, but I never quite felt safe around them. Thought it was because I was worried about breaking them. Never looked into them, kept my eyes on the ground whenever near them. So anyway, exploring theater late one night. 11 o'clock. Friends have keys because they are stage managers. No one else is here and no one else should be able to get in. We go up into the ceiling, not the catwalk, literally the ceiling, to smoke a bowl. Have to climb up a metal ladder and up into a rickety wooden crosswalk. Warned not to fall off because the floor looks like plaster because it is just plaster, and on. Smells like dust, plaster, and roses? Hear voices echoing up from downstairs. They're freaking out. The voices, but my friends too. We think we've been caught. I volunteer to investigate. As I go down the ladder, the smell of roses gets stronger. Someone has turned off the lights in the costume room we used to access the ceiling. Open the door to the stairwell. See girl in long skirts turn and look at me. Her mouth forms a perfect "oh," she vanishes. The smell of roses vanishes. Turn light back on. Climb back into ceiling. Report nothing's there to friends. Be a few weeks later. Backstage in the dressing room alone getting ready for my performance. Trying to get in character. Feel afraid and guilty. Suddenly realize I can smell roses. Curtains move and the voices from outside sound quieter, like it started snowing heavily, muffled, you know? Fuck this, I'll go get in character behind the curtains on stage. Be a few weeks later. Backstage helping a friend get ready for first dress rehearsal. She absent-mindedly asks if I've ever smelled roses in here. Why do you ask? I got here early, and wanted to rehearse a bit, but I felt afraid, like I was doing something wrong, and it smelled like roses. No, I've never experienced that. Be a few months later. Out for dinner with head of my theater department at a synagogue. Everyone's a little tipsy, sharing stories and such, as we are dirty and want to do. She starts on the story of Rosemary, goes like this. Girl auditions, but doesn't get cast as the lead. Wants to prove she's the superior actress. Sets up a fake self-end to show everyone how skilled she is and that she deserves the role. Self-ending is related to the play. A few friends help her move all those tall mirrors so they all reflect the center of the room, as seen from the doorway. She makes a stage rope. Fucks it up. Friends bring other actresses at the planned time. They are treated to sight of her blue face and twitching body. Is a huge tragedy, of course. School decides to move big mirrors to different floors and rooms, presumably because girls who saw the event are traumatized. What the f.jpg? I didn't believe in ghosts before that series of events, but shit.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.